Most people don't realize it, but life has a quiet way of slipping through your fingers. You wake up one day and suddenly the person staring back at you in the mirror feels unfamiliar. The dreams you once chased, the values you held dear, the vision you had for yourself, they start to blur under the weight of distraction, expectation, and the constant pull of other people's opinions. And it happens slowly, almost imperceptibly, until one morning you stop and ask, "Who am I becoming?" That question isn't a passing thought. It's a warning, a signal, a wake-up call. Because the truth is this: if you don't reclaim your focus, if you don't redirect your energy, if you continue letting life happen to you instead of through you, you will lose yourself entirely. We live in a world that glorifies busyness over clarity, noise over stillness, and distraction over discipline. Every notification, every demand, every voice trying to pull you in 1,000 directions chips away at your attention. And attention is the currency of life. Where your attention goes, your energy flows. If you scatter it, you scatter yourself. And before you know it, the person you once were, the person who had goals, convictions, and fire inside, becomes a shadow, an echo of external pressures, rather than a reflection of your own intent. Focus isn't just about working harder, it's about knowing what matters, what aligns with your purpose, and ruthlessly protecting it. Focus is a form of self-respect. When you focus on yourself before anything else, you reclaim the life that is rightfully yours. You stop being a passenger in your own existence. You stop bending to every demand, every distraction, every fleeting trend. You begin to lead yourself with clarity, with intention, with purpose. And that's not easy. That's not comfortable. It requires saying no to things that feel urgent but don't matter. It requires silence in a world addicted to noise. And it requires a courage few are willing to cultivate, the courage to face yourself unfiltered, unshielded, and unapologetically. Because the cost of inattention is higher than most admit. When you drift even a little, you start compromising. You compromise your time, your energy, your values. You compromise your dreams, and eventually you compromise the person you are. And that's the danger. Losing yourself doesn't come as a dramatic event. It comes as a slow erosion, a series of small concessions you didn't even notice. And once it's gone, it's not something you can just pick up again. You have to rebuild, retrace, realign. But it doesn't have to get to that point. The moment you realize you're drifting, the moment you feel the first signs of distraction and depletion, that's your chance to reclaim yourself, to focus, to draw a line between what is yours and what isn't, between what matters and what doesn't, between the life you want and the one others are trying to hand you. This is the first truth. You cannot save yourself if you don't focus on yourself first. Everything else, the relationships, the work, the accolades, the respect, flows from that clarity. Without it, you are a leaf in the wind, reactive, unmoored, at the mercy of every opinion and every demand. With it, you become anchored, deliberate, unshakable. And that focus, true unyielding focus, is what allows you to step back, see the patterns, and make choices that don't just feel good, but that align with the person you're meant to be. So ask yourself, when was the last time you truly focused on you? When was the last time you asked yourself what really matters, not what everyone else expects of you? When was the last time you stood in silence, away from the noise, and faced yourself without excuses? That's where the truth lives, and that's where your journey back to yourself begins. Distractions aren't just inconveniences. They are silent thieves, creeping into your life in ways you barely notice. The endless scroll, the constant ping of notifications, the small tasks that feel urgent but have no meaning. Each one pulls a piece of you away, and it doesn't stop there people around you. No matter how well-intentioned, often demand pieces of your attention that aren't theirs to take. Opinions, expectations, obligations, they pile up quietly until your focus is fractured, and suddenly the person you are meant to be is buried under the weight of other people's priorities. And when you're spread thin like that, when your energy is divided, when your mind is constantly reacting instead of directing, you stop creating, you stop moving forward, you stop feeling, you start existing barely in a shadow of yourself. That's why focus is urgent, because the longer you drift, the harder it becomes to find your way back. Time doesn't pause for distraction. Every hour spent reacting to someone else's agenda is an hour you'll never reclaim. And the consequences aren't abstract. They show up in missed opportunities, in relationships that feel shallow, in dreams that never materialize, in a persistent sense of dissatisfaction that whispers you were meant for more. You feel it as a restlessness, a gnawing, a subtle discomfort you can't shake. That discomfort is your internal compass, pointing you back to yourself. But you have to listen, you have to act, you have to stop treating your focus like an option, like something to pick up when it's convenient, and start treating it like survival. Because in truth, it is. Losing focus is losing yourself. Focus is not about doing more. It's about doing what matters with ruthless clarity. It's about knowing the difference between what's necessary and what's noise, between what builds you and what drains you, between the life you're living and the life you're meant to create. And here's the hard part. This requires discipline. It requires boundaries. It requires saying no, loudly, unapologetically, consistently, to things that steal from you, to habits that erode you, to people who thrive on your attention but offer nothing in return. And it's not comfortable. It will feel isolating at times because the world doesn't reward self-mastery. It rewards reaction, distraction, and approval-seeking. But the person who masters focus, the person who holds themselves accountable to their own path, is the person who wins in the long term. You see, being lost isn't just about being scattered externally. It's about losing your internal alignment. When your attention is fractured, so is your identity. You forget your values. You compromise your standards. You say yes when you should say no, just to appease, just to avoid conflict, just to fit in. And every time you do, a little piece of yourself disappears. Until one day you realize that you've been living according to someone else's script. And that script is written not in your hand, not from your vision, but from the expectations, judgments, and pressures of the world around you. That's when the panic sets in. That's when you feel that urgent pull, I'm losing myself. And if you wait too long to reclaim control, that panic becomes despair, and despair becomes resignation. You start believing that maybe this is who you are, that maybe your dreams, your ambitions, your clarity, they were never really meant to be. And that's a lie. It's the lie the world tells to keep you small, distracted, and compliant. The only way out is focus. The only way back is clarity. So what does that look like in practice? It starts with awareness. Start noticing where your attention goes, not in judgment, not with shame, but with precision. Track your day. Observe the times you react automatically, the moments you drift into habit, the hours spent on things that do not serve you. Then start cutting, ruthlessly, consistently, without apology. Remove the noise, protect your energy, guard your time, and in that space you create, you begin to find yourself again. Because when the distractions fall away, when the external pressures lose their grip, the real you emerges, the person who knows their values, the person who understands their priorities, the person who remembers what matters and refuses to compromise it. That's the person who can finally act with intention instead of reaction. That's the person who can reclaim their life before it's too late. And here's the truth that hits hardest: no one can do this for you. Your focus, your clarity, your reclamation of self, it's yours alone. Other people can inspire, advise, or challenge you, but they cannot live your attention for you. They cannot protect your energy. They cannot sit with the discomfort while you strip away the distractions and face your own thoughts. That work is yours, and it's difficult, it's uncomfortable, it's lonely at times, but it is also liberating, because the moment you stop giving your attention away to everything and everyone else, the moment you start focusing on yourself with intentionality, you start to Reclaim your power. You begin to live deliberately. You begin to act with integrity, and slowly, inevitably, you start to feel whole again. Reclaiming yourself begins with small, deliberate acts. It's not about radical change overnight. It's about noticing the choices you make in every moment and asking, is this mine or is this borrowed from someone else? Each day, you are bombarded by demands, by distractions, by noise, both external and internal. Social media notifications, endless tasks, the pull of other people's expectations, they all conspire to fragment your attention. And worse, most of these things feel urgent. They scream for your energy, they masquerade as important. But true importance is quiet. It whispers, it calls softly, patiently, and it is easy to miss if you are too busy reacting. The difference between existing and truly living is learning to distinguish between the clamor and the call, between what drains you and what nourishes you, between what fragments you and what aligns you. The first step is awareness. Notice where your attention drifts. Notice the moments when your energy is given away, when your focus is hijacked by things that don't serve you. These aren't just wasted hours, they're lost fragments of yourself. Every time you let your mind wander to someone else's drama, every time you react automatically, every time you chase approval instead of acting with intention, you sacrifice a piece of clarity, and clarity, once lost, is not easily regained. So start small, set boundaries, say no to the things that fragment your energy, step away. Reclaiming yourself begins with small, deliberate acts. It's not about radical change overnight, it's about noticing the choices you make in every moment, and asking, is this mine or is this borrowed from someone else? Each day you are bombarded by demands, by distractions, by noise, both external and internal. Social media notifications, endless tasks, the pull of other people's expectations, they all conspire to fragment your attention. And worse, most of these things feel urgent, they scream for your energy, they masquerade as important. But true importance is quiet, it whispers, it calls softly, patiently, and it is easy to miss if you are too busy reacting. The difference between existing and truly living is learning to distinguish between the clamor and the call, between what drains you and what nourishes you, between what fragments you and what aligns you. The first step is awareness. Notice where your attention drifts. Notice the moments when your energy is given away, when your focus is hijacked by things that don't serve you. These aren't just wasted hours, they're lost fragments of yourself. Every time you let your mind wander to someone else's drama, every time you react automatically, every time you chase approval, instead of acting with intention, you sacrifice a piece of clarity. And clarity, once lost, is not easily regained. So start small, set boundaries, say no to the things that fragment your energy, step away from people who thrive on your distraction, cut ties with habits that drain rather than build. Protect your time as if it were your most precious asset, because it is. Then comes discipline. Focus is a muscle, and like any muscle, it grows with consistent training. Every deliberate act of attention, every moment you resist the pull of noise, strengthens it. Start with your mornings. Guard the first hours of your day. Protect them from reactive scrolling, from unnecessary obligations, from the endless parade of distractions. Use that time to think, to plan, to connect with your inner compass. When you begin your day aligned with yourself, the rest of the hours fall into sharper focus. But this requires resistance. It requires saying no to what everyone else says yes to, even when it feels uncomfortable, because comfort is rarely aligned with growth. Growth demands tension. Growth demands discomfort. Solitude becomes a weapon in this process, not a punishment. There's a power in being alone with your thoughts, in facing yourself without distraction, in learning to sit in silence and wrestle with the truth of who you are. Most people avoid this because it's uncomfortable. It forces introspection. It forces accountability. It forces you to confront the ways you've been giving away your attention, your energy, yourself. But if you can sit with that discomfort, if you can face the truth of your own mind, you gain a clarity that no crowd, no approval, no noise can ever provide. And that clarity is magnetic. It pulls decisions into alignment, it strengthens your intuition, and it gives you the ability to move through life with deliberate purpose rather than scattered reaction. But awareness, discipline, and solitude are not enough on their own. You also need to act. Focus without action is a trap. It's still just potential. And action without focus is wasted energy, it's noise disguised as progress. True reclamation requires both. It requires knowing what matters to you, protecting your energy around it, and then acting decisively to bring it into reality. It means finishing the projects that align with your values, setting boundaries that others resist, saying no when it's unpopular and yes when it matters. It means being uncomfortable, standing alone when necessary, and refusing to compromise. Clarity for convenience. The world will test you at every turn. It will challenge your decisions, question your priorities, and tempt you to drift back into distraction. But each time you resist, each time you return to focus, you strengthen the core of yourself that cannot be lost. And here's the truth that most people never realize: your attention is your life. Where it goes, what it builds, and what it protects determines who you are. If you are constantly pulled by external demands, if you live by the reactions of others, if your focus is fragmented, then you are living someone else's life, not your own. But when you reclaim it, when you act with clarity and purpose, when you protect your energy and your time, like the treasures they are, you become whole, you become aligned, you become unstoppable. Because focus is more than concentration, it is sovereignty, it is the power to be yourself fully, to live according to your values, to act without apology, and to move through life with intention that no distraction can break. And the irony is this: the more you focus, the less you feel lost, even in chaos. The world will still scream, distractions will still exist, people will still demand your attention, but your internal compass, honed by awareness, discipline, and solitude, keeps you anchored. You feel the pull, you notice it, and you return to yourself. You don't have to fight everything at once. You don't have to control the noise. You just have to control where your mind goes, where your energy flows, and what you choose to build. And slowly, inevitably, you start to see the pieces of yourself you thought were gone. You start to recognize the dreams that were buried under busyness. You start to reclaim the values and standards you compromised along the way. You begin to feel like you again, not because the world has slowed down, but because you've learned to move through it without losing yourself. That's the power of focus before it's too late. Not urgency driven by panic, but clarity born from deliberate attention. Not frantic action, but disciplined presence. Not noise, but sovereignty. Because the moment you stop giving yourself away, the moment you stop living someone else's script, the moment you reclaim your attention, you reclaim your life. And once that happens, everything else follows. Decisions become clearer. Relationships become healthier. Opportunities appear with precision instead of chance. And the person you were meant to be, your truest, most unshakable self, emerges, not lost, not scattered, but fully present, fully alive, and fully in control. Distractions are subtle predators. They don't announce themselves. They come as convenience, entertainment, small favors, tiny urgencies that never feel like they steal anything significant, until you look back and realize your days, your weeks, your months have vanished into a fog of noise. Every swipe, every scroll, every small interruption chips away at your clarity. You begin to lose awareness of where your attention goes, and slowly, without drama or fanfare, you lose yourself. It doesn't happen in one moment of weakness. It happens in the accumulation of choices you thought were inconsequential. That's why focus is a muscle. It's not a natural state, but a cultivated one. And like any muscle, if it isn't trained, it weakens. If it isn't defended, it's taken. Awareness is the first defense. Begin noticing where your mind drifts, how often you're reacting instead of creating, how frequently you let external demands dictate your actions. The truth is brutal but necessary. Most of the noise you respond to, most of the urgencies you chase, most of the distractions you indulge aren't designed to serve you. They exist to capture attention, to fragment thought, to condition you to be dependent on external stimuli for satisfaction. The more you give in, the more you lose the connection to yourself. You start living in fragments, your purpose diluted across 1,000 meaningless tasks, your energy spent like currency on things that will never yield returns. That's the quiet theft of focus, the slow disappearance of self. And yet, there is hope, because attention is reclaimable. The moment you realize that your energy is finite, that your time is precious, that your presence is powerful, you gain leverage. You begin drawing boundaries. You start saying no to things that don't serve your growth. No to conversations that scatter your thoughts. No to obligations that dilute your purpose. And each no is a return to yourself. Each no is a reclamation of sovereignty. You're no longer a passive participant in your life, letting circumstance dictate your direction. You become deliberate. You become the gatekeeper of your own existence. And the liberation is intoxicating. Not the loud kind of excitement that comes from external applause, but a deep, quiet certainty that you are moving with intention, not drift. Focus isn't just about ignoring distractions. It's about choosing what deserves your full attention. It's about knowing that every thought you entertain, every task you undertake, every relationship you nurture carries weight. And when your attention is intentional, everything else aligns around it. Your work becomes sharper because you're not splitting yourself. Your creativity becomes more fertile because your mind isn't crowded. Your relationships deepen because you are fully present. Even the challenges that arise feel less chaotic because you're not constantly fighting to retrieve pieces of yourself from the fragments of scattered attention. But there's a cost, and this is where most people falter. To focus fully, to protect yourself from constant noise, you must face resistance from others and often from yourself. People will complain that you're distant, that you're hard to reach, that you've changed, and your mind will whisper doubt. Are you being too rigid, too extreme, too detached? The answer is not in the comfort of others. It's in alignment with yourself. Discomfort is not failure. It's the signal that your attention is no longer at the mercy of others, that your energy is reclaimed, that your life is once again governed by choice rather than reaction. The moments of silence, of solitude, of being misunderstood are not empty. They are fertile ground. They are where focus roots itself. They are where the real you begins to emerge, strong, resilient, unshakable. And here is the paradox. The more fiercely you protect your focus, the more magnetic your presence becomes. People notice, not because you announce it, but because your clarity speaks volumes. They feel it in how you carry yourself, in how you respond, in how your decisions have weight. Presence isn't about being everywhere. It's about being fully wherever you are, and that is something that cannot be replicated by constant activity, constant visibility, constant noise. That is a presence built on depth, on intention, on the unbroken thread of self-alignment that most never cultivate. Focus is liberation, but it's also responsibility. Every choice of attention, every act of discipline, every refusal of distraction is a vote for the life you want to build. It is the declaration that you refuse to drift, that you refuse to allow the world to dictate your value, that you refuse to lose yourself in the constant pull of urgency. The more you defend your focus, the more you defend your life. And the more you do, the clearer it becomes that you are not losing time, you are reclaiming it. You are not drifting, you are anchoring yourself in purpose. And the more anchored you become, the less likely you are to surrender your energy to anything less than what truly matters. Because here's the truth. Few ever realize, when you lose yourself, you lose everything that makes you capable of truly living. When your attention is fragmented, your energy diluted, your mind scattered, You may exist, but you do. Not thrive. And thriving isn't optional, it's essential. The world will demand your attention endlessly. It will pull at your focus from every side. And if you give in, slowly, silently, you disappear. But if you choose yourself, if you reclaim your focus before it's too late, you don't just survive, you flourish. You become deliberate, powerful, anchored. You become someone whose presence matters, whose choices carry weight, whose life is fully lived, not dictated by distraction, not shaped by others, but by the unshakable clarity of a mind aligned with itself. Every day that passes without deliberate attention is a day where your essence is diluted. Small compromises accumulate into habits that slowly redefine who you are. You begin to shape yourself according to the noise around you, the fleeting desires of others, the endless pull of convenience, and before long, the person you intended to become is barely recognizable. The irony is cruel. In trying to keep pace with the world, we lose the very thing that makes us capable of keeping pace with ourselves. Focus is not just a tool, it is the lifeline to your identity. Without it, every thought, every action, every decision is borrowed from the expectations, urgencies, and distractions of everyone else. Clarity emerges only when you step away from that torrent. It begins as a whisper, an awareness that the constant flurry of input is not serving your purpose. You start noticing patterns, the hours wasted on trivialities, the conversations that drained rather than uplifted, the energy given away without thought. That awareness, while uncomfortable, is essential. It is the moment you confront the truth. Much of your life has been spent as a passenger, not a pilot. And the realization is heavy. It is not guilt. It is responsibility. The responsibility to reclaim your attention, to protect your time, to cultivate the life you were meant to lead. Self-discipline becomes your armor, not the rigid kind imposed by external rules, but a fluid, internal force that allows you to navigate the chaos without losing sight of yourself. You begin to guard your mornings, your thoughts, your choices. You understand that what you allow in your mind, what you spend your energy on, defines the trajectory of your life. Every distraction resisted, every indulgence postponed, every moment spent in deep focus is a vote for your future self. It is a declaration that you refuse to drift, that your life will not be a reaction to circumstance, but a product of deliberate, conscious effort. And yet, reclaiming focus demands confrontation, not with others, but with yourself. You must face your impulses, your fears, your habitual tendencies to escape discomfort. The mind will fight this change with familiar excuses. It's too hard, I'm too busy, I'll do it later. But each delay is a surrender, a subtle erosion of self. The struggle is internal, and it is constant, and the reward is proportional. The sharper your discipline, the clearer your mind, the stronger your sense of presence. You begin to notice things others overlook, the opportunities hidden in silence, the potential revealed in solitude, the strength cultivated when you prioritize substance over sensation. Focus reshapes your perception of time. Moments once wasted become sacred. The trivial loses its grip. The noise fades into the background, leaving only what truly matters. Decisions no longer feel overwhelming because you have cleared the mental clutter that once clouded judgment. You start moving with precision, your steps measured, your words intentional, your attention unwavering, and in that precision you begin to recognize a deeper truth. Life is never chaotic on its own. Chaos exists only when your mind is scattered. By reclaiming focus, you create order internally, and that order radiates outward, influencing everything you touch. But this path is not solitary because of isolation, it is solitary because of discernment. You begin to see who aligns with your energy and who drains it. You notice the people who demand constant attention versus those who value the same presence you are cultivating. You start choosing where to invest your time, who to listen to, and which pursuits deserve your energy. And with each choice, your boundaries become firmer, your presence more magnetic. People respond differently when you stop being available at all times. Your value is no longer defined by your accessibility, but by the intentionality behind it. And the most profound transformation is internal. You stop looking outward for validation. Approval from others no longer dictates your emotions. Recognition is no longer the measure of your worth. Your power is self-contained, rooted in the realization that the most important witness to your life is yourself. You no longer chase fleeting attention. You cultivate a presence that is steady, intentional, undeniable, not because others are watching, but because you are fully aligned with your own principles. Focus becomes not just a habit, but an identity. Ultimately, the reclaiming of focus is the reclaiming of self. It is the quiet, relentless work of turning inward, of noticing patterns, of choosing clarity over convenience, substance over sensation, depth over distraction. And in that process, you begin to feel the unshakable foundation of presence, the rare kind of power that doesn't demand an audience, the certainty that comes from knowing you are fully intentionally yourself. When the world around you is loud, scattered, and chaotic, you remain anchored because your attention is no longer for sale. Your life is no longer borrowed. It belongs entirely to you, and in that belonging you are unstoppable. Once focus becomes your anchor, the world starts to feel less like a force acting upon you and more like a reflection of your inner state. Distractions no longer control the flow of your day. Notifications, demands, and obligations no longer pull at your attention like a tide. Instead, you move through time with purpose, aware of what deserves your energy and what can be allowed to fade. Every decision is no longer reactive, no longer hurried, no longer borrowed from external pressures. You are leading yourself first, and through that leadership, everything else begins to align. This is the stage where awareness transforms into mastery. You notice the subtle ways your mind wants to wander, the quiet impulses that would drag you into the comfort of old habits, the seductive lure of immediate gratification. And instead of surrendering, you observe. You acknowledge the impulse, and then you redirect. That redirection, repeated thousands of times, is where true freedom is forged. It is not the absence of temptation, but the presence of deliberate choice. Each choice strengthens the boundaries of who you are, the clarity of what matters, and the power of your attention. Focus teaches patience in a world that demands instant results. You realize that growth is cumulative, that the small, consistent steps, resisting distractions, cultivating awareness, maintaining boundaries, compound into profound transformation over time. It is in the repetition, in the quiet adherence to principle when no one is watching, that your life begins to shift. And with this shift comes a deeper understanding of value. Your time is precious, your attention is sacred, and every moment spent unfocused is a fragment of your potential lost. Solitude becomes your ally, not your punishment. In the silence, your mind clears, your priorities sharpen, and your voice becomes more distinct. You begin to recognize which influences in your life are nourishing and which are depleting. Relationships, commitments, even routines are re-evaluated through the lens of focus. You start saying no without guilt, declining invitations or engagements that dilute your presence, and investing more deliberately in the actions that align with your vision. The act of protecting your attention becomes a practice of self-respect, a statement that your life is not a resource to be scattered, but a vessel to be guided. In this stage, clarity breeds confidence. When the noise of others no longer dictates your rhythm, decisions that once felt heavy now feel precise. You see the options, weigh them, and act without hesitation, because your mind is no longer cluttered by unnecessary inputs. The strength you feel is quiet, but profound. It does not shout for recognition. It does not demand approval. It simply exists. And in that existence, your presence becomes magnetic. People notice not because you broadcast yourself, but because your energy is unmistakable. It radiates from a place of intention rather than performance. Yet, maintaining this level of focus is not effortless. The mind is a restless instrument. Old habits, cultural pressures, and the persistent lure of distraction all seek to pull you back into fragmentation. The challenge is constant, but it is also a test of self-respect. Every time you resist the pull, every time you return to deliberate attention, you reaffirm your ownership of yourself. That ownership is liberating. It is the realization that no external force can dictate the course of your life without your consent. And that knowledge, quiet, internal, unwavering, is more powerful than any accolade, applause, or external validation could ever be. Ultimately, the reclamation of focus is a reclamation of identity. You begin to feel whole again because your actions, your decisions, and your energy all reflect the person you were always meant to be. The layers of distraction, the borrowed desires, the habitual surrender to the urgencies of others, they all fade into irrelevance. You stand firmly in yourself, and that stance alone reshapes the world around you. You are no longer lost in the currents. You are the current. You are no longer defined by external chaos. You are defined by internal clarity. And in that clarity you find not just focus, but freedom, the kind of freedom that makes it impossible for the world to steal your sense of self. As your focus deepens, you begin to notice the subtle erosion that comes from living unexamined. The endless scrolls, the shallow conversations, the habits that once seemed harmless. They all begin to appear for what they are, distractions stealing fragments of your life. Each moment spent reacting, comparing, or conforming chips away at the foundation of who you are. Focus teaches you to recognize these leaks, to trace the energy drain back to its source, and to reclaim it before it depletes you entirely. This is not about rigid control, it's about conscious choice, about taking full responsibility for the life that is happening right now. In this space, self-awareness becomes your shield. You start to see how easy it is to be pulled into narratives that are not your own, to carry expectations that never belong to you, to prioritize outcomes that others value over what you truly desire. And with that awareness comes the courage to step back, to pause, and to decide with intention. You no longer allow momentum alone to dictate your actions. Instead, you assess, you question, you recalibrate. Every decision becomes an act of self-alignment, every no a reinforcement of your boundaries, every deliberate action a reaffirmation that your life is yours to govern. The power of focus is subtle but transformative. It does not announce itself with drama or force. It grows quietly, accumulating strength through consistency. Over time, you realize that the world's noise no longer penetrates your core. Opinions, judgments, and urgencies that once commanded your attention now pass through without sway. You respond, not because you are compelled, but because you choose to, and in that choice lies liberation. You are no longer reactive to circumstances, but proactive in shaping them. You are not led by distraction, but by clarity. You are no longer losing yourself, you are rediscovering the essence that was always present beneath the chaos. Focus also recalibrates your perception of relationships, influence, and impact. You begin to see clearly who adds value to your life and who merely consumes it. Interactions that once felt obligatory now become optional. Presence is no longer a transaction but a currency, exchanged only where it carries weight, only where it fosters growth, only where it aligns with your truth. And as you begin to live this way, you notice a shift in how others engage with you. Your energy commands attention not through demand but through coherence. People begin to sense the alignment within you, the quiet confidence that is rooted in deliberate thought and unwavering presence. It is magnetic, not performative. Yet, the path is never without challenge. Old patterns resist, and the temptation to surrender to distraction is constant. You may feel the pull to react to every ping, to participate in every debate, to chase every fleeting validation. This is the test. the measure of whether your focus is superficial or truly internalized. Every moment you resist, every time you return to intentionality, you build an inner architecture that no external chaos can dismantle. Each act of conscious attention is like a brick laid in the foundation of your self-possession, and with each brick you grow less dependent on the fleeting approval of the outside world and more rooted in the solidity of your own clarity. In the end, focus is not merely a tool, it is a reclamation. It restores the parts of yourself that were scattered, diluted, or hidden beneath the demands of others. It allows you to act, speak, and live from a place of alignment rather than reaction. It is both armor and compass. It protects your energy while guiding your path. And when you finally embrace this state, you realize that the truest power does not lie in controlling the world, but in mastering yourself. In mastering yourself, you reclaim not just focus, but identity, integrity, and the freedom to live on your own terms. As you continue on this path, the stakes become clearer. Every choice matters because every choice defines the trajectory of your life. Small compromises, once dismissed as insignificant, accumulate silently, shaping habits, thoughts, and ultimately identity. Losing focus is not always a dramatic collapse. Often it is subtle, a distraction here, a concession there, a surrender to convenience over principle. And before you realize it, the person you were meant to be drifts further away. Focus acts like a lens, sharpening your perception of these subtleties, illuminating the gaps between who you are and who you are becoming. This is why urgency matters. It is not a call to panic, but a call to awaken. Time does not pause for reflection, and life will not wait for clarity. The longer you allow distraction to dominate, the further you slide from alignment with your true self. And yet, awareness is the most potent tool you possess. It allows you to notice the drift, to identify the patterns that pull you off course, and to make conscious adjustments before they solidify into permanent habits. It is the difference between reactive survival and intentional living, between drifting in someone else's current and steering your own vessel toward meaningful destinations. Focus also requires courage. It demands that you confront the uncomfortable truth of your own behavior, that you face the ways you've allowed life to be shaped by noise rather than by intention. This confrontation is rarely comfortable. It asks you to question the routines, relationships, and rituals that have felt safe but have slowly eroded your essence. It challenges you to examine the sources of your energy and the drains that consume it, and it pushes you to ask yourself the most difficult questions. Am I living for myself or for others? Am I acting from clarity or habit? Am I preserving my integrity or surrendering it to convenience? These questions have no easy answers, but they are essential, because the answers define not just what you do, but who you are. As focus deepens, you begin to understand that your life is a reflection of your choices, not your circumstances. External noise, distractions, and pressures will always exist, but their influence diminishes when your attention is anchored. What was once overwhelming becomes navigable. Chaos becomes context rather than crisis. You start to respond to events rather than being swept away by them. And in that space, creativity flourishes, judgment strengthens, and vision clarifies. Focus transforms the way you perceive reality. It becomes the lens through which life itself is filtered and through which you assert ownership over your time, energy, and identity. Perhaps the most profound realization is that focus is not selfish. It is a form of preservation and empowerment that allows you to show up fully for yourself and, by extension, for the world. When you operate from clarity, when you act from alignment with your true self, your presence impacts others without force. You no longer react to every provocation, chase every validation, or compete for fleeting attention. Your influence grows precisely because it is intentional, not performative. People notice the difference, not because you demand recognition, but because your groundedness invites respect, trust, and authenticity. And still, this journey requires vigilance. The mind is easily seduced by comfort, habit, and distraction. It is relentless in attempting to reclaim control through noise, comparison, or impulse. That is why focus must be practiced daily. Every deliberate pause, every conscious choice, every rejection of the unnecessary strengthens your internal architecture. It is built brick by brick, moment by moment, until it becomes resilient, unshakable, and undeniably yours. Losing yourself is optional. Reclaiming yourself is a practice, and the window to practice, before distraction solidifies into permanence, is now. Because at the core, this is not just about focus, it is about life. It is about ensuring that the person you are today does not dissolve into a reflection of others' expectations or the chaos of unexamined moments. It is about reclaiming your essence before the drift becomes irreversible. And when you finally do, when you anchor yourself in clarity, when you act intentionally and fiercely aligned with your values, you discover something undeniable: the life you were always meant to live was waiting for you all along. You only needed the courage to focus before it was too late. And now, as you stand at this point in your journey, the clarity you've fought to cultivate becomes a compass. It points not toward fleeting pleasures, superficial recognition, or the easy comfort of agreement, but toward alignment with yourself. You begin to see that losing yourself is not a single event, but a gradual surrender, a slow erosion of intention, a quiet consent to distraction, a constant compromise of what truly matters. And yet, reclaiming yourself is the reverse, a deliberate, conscious act, moment by moment, choice by choice. It requires persistence, patience, and the willingness to stand alone when necessary. It asks you to honor your values even when the world seems indifferent, even when doubt whispers louder than certainty. Focus becomes more than a skill. It becomes a shield. It protects you from the subtle forces that conspire to dilute your identity. It guards your attention from trivialities, your energy from misalignment, your presence from being scattered across the demands of others. Every act of deliberate attention is an investment in yourself. Every refusal of distraction, a declaration that your life will not be hijacked by inertia or external expectations. The more you practice this discipline, the more your internal compass strengthens, and the less the noise outside can influence your direction. This is not rigid control, it is mastery born from self-awareness, from understanding that the cost of compromise is often invisible until it is too late to reverse. There is also a profound freedom in this reclamation. When you focus on yourself, when you prioritize your clarity and presence over pleasing others, you realize that your value is not dependent on applause, recognition, or agreement. You no longer need to justify your choices, explain your intentions, or defend your boundaries. The world will notice your absence or presence in its own time, but that timing no longer dictates your peace. You walk with a calm certainty, a presence that does not demand attention but commands it through authenticity. And this is where real influence emerges, not from performance or popularity, but from grounded alignment with self. People are drawn not to your loudness, but to the unshakable truth you carry quietly within. But make no mistake, this path is not without resistance. The mind will resist clarity, the heart will cling to comfort, and the world will constantly attempt to pull you back into reactive existence. That is why focus requires vigilance, practice, and courage. Each day offers tests, moments where it would be easier to give in, to compromise, to drift. And each time you choose to stay aligned, to act intentionally, to honor yourself, you reinforce the structure of your life. You are no longer subject to circumstance, you shape circumstance. You are no longer reactive, you become the origin of action. And that transformation, though gradual, is undeniable. It carries forward, rippling, through your choices, your relationships, your work, and your presence, in ways others may not immediately recognize, but they will feel it. Ultimately, this is the essence of what it means to focus, before it's too late. It is not a fleeting motivation, a temporary burst of effort, or a reaction to fear. It is a sustained commitment to yourself, a relentless pursuit of clarity, and a refusal to surrender your life to distraction, expectation, or the easy path. To focus is to reclaim your narrative, to walk each day with intentionality, to create boundaries, and to honor the person you are becoming. And when you do, you discover that the life you were always seeking was never out of reach. It was simply waiting for you to stop drifting and start paying attention. So now, take a moment, look around at the spaces you occupy, the routines you follow, the choices you make. Ask yourself, am I living for myself, or am I letting life pull me away? The answer is yours, and it is urgent. Every day without focus is a day lost to drift, a day that cannot be recovered. But every day with attention, every moment lived intentionally, is a step back toward alignment, toward power, toward the life you were always meant to inhabit. This is your call. Focus before it's too late, because when you do, you don't just find yourself, you become unshakable, unwavering, and undeniable. And now, as you stand at the edge of decision, recognize this truth. No one else can reclaim your life for you. No advice, no guidance, no influence from outside will restore what has been slowly slipping away. The responsibility is yours alone. To focus is to take ownership, not in a fleeting moment of motivation, but in every choice, every thought, every action. It is the quiet revolution of self, a rebellion against drift, against distraction, against the subtle erosion of your essence. The world may continue to pull, to demand, to distract, but you have learned that your power lies in presence, in clarity, in the unwavering attention you give to yourself. You are no longer a passenger in your own story. You are the driver, the navigator, the architect. Each decision, each act of intentionality rebuilds the bridge between who you are and who you are meant to become. And there will be days when the path feels steep, when the silence is heavy, when the temptations to compromise and blend in roar louder than your convictions. But it is precisely in those moments that your focus is tested, and it is precisely there that your transformation takes shape. The unshakable self is not built in comfort. It is forged in the tension between distraction and attention, between surrender and discipline, between the life you have and the life you refuse to lose. And remember this, focusing on yourself does not mean abandoning others. It means showing up fully, authentically, without diluting your presence to appease expectations. It means honoring your time, your energy, your mind, your soul. It means speaking your truth, setting your boundaries, and acting with a clarity that cannot be shaken by noise, opinion, or fleeting approval. In doing so, you create not just a life, but a standard. You create a presence that commands respect, a path that inspires, a life that others may witness but cannot dictate. So when doubt creeps in, when the world questions your choices, when the weight of solitude presses on you, stand firm. You are not lost. You are found. You are not alone. You are whole. The life you reclaim today is not a temporary victory. It is a foundation that will carry you through every storm, every distraction, every challenge. Focus before it's too late, not as a mantra, but as a practice, as a lifestyle, as a sacred commitment to yourself. And when you do, something extraordinary happens. You step into a power that cannot be borrowed, cannot be stolen, cannot be diluted. A power that flows from within, unwavering, anchored, undeniable. You become a force of clarity in a world of noise. You become a presence that others feel before they see, understand before they question, respect before they speak. You become unshakable, not because the world bends to you, but because you no longer bend to the world. This is the ultimate freedom, to live fully, consciously, and intentionally. To focus, to act, to create, to lead, not for applause, not for validation, not for approval, but for yourself. Because once you reclaim your life, once you sharpen your attention, once you align with your true self, nothing can take it from you. The drift ends, the noise fades, the distractions dissolve, and what remains is you, whole, present, powerful and unbreakable. That is the life waiting on the other side of focus. That is the life worth every moment of discipline, every act of courage, every choice to stand firm. That is your call. That is your power. That is who you were always meant to be. If this video struck a chord with you, leave a comment with 1. If you feel there's room to improve, type 0. Your feedback inspires me to create more content on Stoic philosophy. If you found this video valuable, make sure to like it, share it with friends, and subscribe to the channel's Stoicism Notebook. Keep following for more videos on Stoic philosophy so you never miss the journey of returning to yourself. Remember, true peace is always within your reach.